Stopped out here at Bunch for a little while this afternoon, and it is a beautiful day in Georgia. Maybe it's time to tell you one of my stories. Most of you know I used to work for the railroad and I was a railway carman. We used to see a lot of hobos. Had a lot of encounters with hobos over the years. I'll relate a couple of stories to you. We were working in the receiving yard. That's the inbound yard in Atlanta. Back then we had a lot of friction-bearing wheels. Those wheels have oil in the journal boxes to keep the axles lubricated. They're obsolete now. You still see a few around. But one of our jobs was to walk the trains when they come into the yard and lift the journal box lids with a big metal hook. And while doing that, we would inspect the train for any mechanical defects that might need to be sent to the shop for repair. By lifting those lids, when the train got ready to leave in the outbound yard, the carman over there would pour some oil in the boxes and slam the lids back down before it left town to make sure it had plenty of oil for lubricating the axles, journals. We were walking southbound on this track in the receiving yard. It was the middle of the afternoon. A train had just came in and stopped, and we were working our way down it. I heard Davis call me from the other side of the train. "Come over here and look at this." "I'll be there in a minute," I said. I was looking at something. I climbed over the train and got over there where it was, and there was a hobo laying on the end of this flat car. He was laying right at the end of the car with his leg hanging down between the cars. And that's a good way I know of to get your leg mashed behind the horn of a coupler. But he was laying there asleep. We said, "Hey, wake up, wake up." He didn't stir. Davis took one of them metal hooks we had and wrapped him on the leg real hard with it. But when he hit him with the metal hook, it didn't sound normal. It was a thud. We laughed. He clunked him a couple more times, thud, thud, beating on his leg. Finally, the guy woke up. He said, "What are you doing up on this train?" Well, he was drunk. The fellow reached in his pocket and pulled out a $1 bill. First words out his mouth was, "Go get me a Coca-Cola." "Get you a Coca-Cola? Fellow, we're 2 miles from the nearest Coke machine. You need to get down off this train before you get hurt." "Go get me a Coca-Cola." "I'll get you a Coca-Cola," I said. I went over to the speaker box. We didn't use radios back then. Kicked the speaker button to the foreman and said, "There's a man up here laying on the train. Send me the railroad police down there to get this man off the train." We went back and was talking to him while we were waiting for the railroad police to get there. And I asked him about his leg. He said, "Oh, I got a wooden leg." And he did. He have a wooden leg. I guess that's why I didn't know it was hanging down between the cars. He couldn't feel it. "How'd you get a wooden leg?" "Oh, I got run over by a train up in Chattanooga a couple years ago." "And you're still out here riding the trains? Come on, get down off that train. We got work to do." He just laid there and ignored me, wanting me to go get him a Coca-Cola. Finally, the police came and escorted him off the train. As far as I know, he never did get his Coca-Cola. There were some real characters we saw when we ran into them different hobos. Seen some strange things. Some things I couldn't mention on this YouTube. More episode I might mention. Train come zipping into the receiving yard there one day. As soon as he stopped and shot the brakes, fella jumped down out of this boxcar with the door open. And we were under a bridge where pigeons and everything else make their mess under the bridge, and it was real nasty on the ground. But it was standing water from the rain. It had been raining all afternoon. I was standing in a mud puddle about 2 inches deep. Well, I got off and started drinking that nasty water. I said, "Fella, have you lost your mind?" He said, "I ain't had a drink of water in 3 days. I said, "That water ain't clean or safe to drink." "The best water I've tasted in a long time," he said. So I imagine that fella had his Montezuma revenge later on for sure. For several years after I took the job in the Griffin district, I was based out of Columbus, Georgia. I had to go to Columbus one day for a safety meeting. I was leaving the yard in my pickup truck and I saw a cut of piggyback empty flat cars shoving in a track towards the train yard. And there was a guy laying on the end of the flat car just screaming and hollering like heck. The train stopped close to the crossing there, and I got out of my truck and walked over there and to see what his problem was. He had got his foot and lower leg mashed behind the horn of the coupler. Now, them long shank couplers will move in and out. Railroad has good reason not wanting people to trespass on their trains because you can get hurt very easily. And what had happened when they were shoving and he was climbing across, standing on that coupler, it mashed his foot really bad. Help me, I'll get you an ambulance. He was bleeding and I didn't want to get close to him. Back then, everybody was scared to death of this HIV virus going around. And I wasn't going to get exposed to none of it. He wasn't the cleanest looking fellow in the world. I could see he wasn't going to bleed to death because I'll just call you an ambulance. And I stood back and waited while they come and hauled him off. I just didn't have the desire to get exposed to any kind of disease or anything. He was all right. I mean, he lived and everything. I see a train coming. But my advice to anybody is stay off these trains.
It is 9:30, clear, punch,
9:30. Don't tell me that. We got a Herzog coming by here. I think that's what it is.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 195.1, no defects.